Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're going to be doing a comparison between a two-door Defender and a four-door Defender to decide which one you should go for. But first and foremost, a huge shout out and thank you to Harrison Imports for giving me some time with both of these Defenders. Check out their inventory and link below. Let's get straight into the video. Now let's just focus on the key differences between both of the Defenders. So starting over here with the four-door from a front end perspective, notice that we've got that accent on the hood, you've got the Defender logo right here, full LED lights down below with the fog lights, and then all of the parking sensors along the front end. And this one's a little bit more set up for the street. It has the air suspension, and then it's got the on-road tires. That one's an X Dynamic package, no air suspension, and it's got more aggressive off-road tires, which definitely kind of sets these two apart. And then it also has a protection group, so notice it has that right there. But again, from a front end perspective, pretty much the same. Now they do have the same powertrain. They both have the inline six, so it's good for 395 horsepower, 406 pound-feet of torque. Obviously the two-door weighs substantially less compared to the four-door, so that powertrain does do a little bit more for the two-door version of the Defender. But yeah, from a front-end perspective, we're pretty much identical. Now we're going to go over things here with the sides of both the Defenders. So first off, on the X Dynamic package, we've got 19-inch wheels, 255mm tires. On the regular Defender, we've got 22-inch wheels, 275mm tires. So we actually have thinner tires over there, but again, we've got a little bit more sidewall, and then you guys can see the tread is quite a bit more aggressive compared to the tires on this kind of more street-oriented Defender. And then again, we've got the air suspension on the four-door, whereas we've got the standard suspension over here on the two-door. So definitely a difference there. And then look at the wheel design here with both of them. Again, definitely different. Notice that they both have the venting here on the side. And again, we've got that protection group, so we have that on the mirror cap, whereas you have the regular mirror over there. Now, there's a big difference with the doors here, because look how big the door is over there on the two-door versus on the four-door. The four-door door is a lot smaller. So notice if we open this up, you guys can kind of see like the space there with the entry. And then if we pop over here to the two-door, notice the space of entry is a lot larger, again, because of the two-door configuration. Don't worry, we will pop in the back shortly. That'll happen in just a little bit. But kind of notice everything there on the side. And then I don't have these perfectly lined up. The two-door is just a little bit farther forward compared to the four-door, but there definitely is quite a bit of a length difference between both of them. And then kind of popping here to the rear, this is where you really see the difference in terms of the appearance, that 3/4 angle. You can see with both of them aesthetic wise. And then if we actually pop here into the trunk area, there is another difference. So this four-door has the third row configuration, and if you have the seat folded down, so this is how much space, like look at the seat right there, you've got like a tiny amount of space. But if the seat's folded down, you have tons of cargo space here in the back. And then notice you have the air suspension buttons right there. You've got like outlets, all that fun stuff, cup holder, everything, lots of cool stuff. But if we pop over here to the two-door, notice that the storage space behind the seats is a little bit more, but with the seats folded down for the third row in the four-door, if that makes sense, then not as much. But then if you fold down these seats, well, you have more storage space, which is interesting. Obviously no air suspension button or anything like that, and so another difference with that. And then the one thing I will mention, obviously since it's a smaller vehicle, overall cargo volume is going to be on the smaller side of things compared to the four-door. So if you can only fold down those seats, whereas over here in the four-door, we've got this row we can fold down, and then we have that row we can fold down. I have that seat forward so you guys can kind of see. So you have quite a bit more cargo volume, I guess is the best way to put it. But we'll shut that, and we'll shut that one, and wait for it. That is the two-door, that is the four-door. Let's pop inside both of them. So starting over here with the two-door, I've got the seat already prepped so I can just kind of pop back there, and so you guys can kind of see a little bit of a squeeze. But once you're back here, it's actually pretty comfortable here in this second row area. You guys can see where the seat would fold back, so you actually have a decent amount of leg room. And notice we've got all of these climate controls down below, and then headroom. And then notice we've got the cool Defender windows here at the top. But yeah, definitely spacious second row. Now we'll pop over into the four-door and see if their second row is as spacious. Now, popping over here into the four-door. So, sitting here in the second row, it feels pretty much identical as the second row there in the two-door. So, that's pretty much interesting, I guess, is the best way to put it. Notice we still have the climate controls, all that fun stuff, but now we got to pop over in the third row. So as you can see, it is extremely cramped back here. I actually literally do not fit back here. I do have heated seats, which is pretty cool, and well, plenty of headroom. But yeah, the third row, I definitely reserve it for kids. It is so cramped, like it is ridiculous. I don't know if you guys can kind of see here from a legroom perspective, but yeah, I can't even like look at this. My knees like popping out there. You just, yeah, it's cool that it has a third row, but I don't know. At least I get these windows here at the top, even though my legs are gonna die. Now let's pop over here to the front area and see if the space feels any different. So again, here in the two-door, and then visibility, and this one also has the camera mirror, which is pretty cool, and panoramic sunroof, another cool feature. But space-wise, definitely feels good. Now the two-door does have manual seats, so that is pretty interesting. But yeah, that is the two-door, and gotta pop over to the four-door. So even though the door entry isn't as large, sitting here in the seat, it feels identical. Yeah. And also we still have the panoramic sunroof in this one too, which is pretty cool. But yeah, this feels identical from a space perspective. It's mostly this part that isn't as like open. So that's like the biggest difference, is like this is kind of pushed back in the two-door, whereas here in the four-door, it's farther forward, this pillar right here. But when you're actually sitting in the driver's seat, it feels the same. Well, now that we've gone over the space and everything with both of them, let's take them out, drive them, and see how they drive differently. Again, four-door air suspension, two-door no air suspension, and then off-road tires, on-road tires. Should be pretty interesting. So let's go over visibility here in the two-door. You guys can see visibility over the hood, both of the mirrors. They do have blind spot monitoring, and then throughout the rest of the rear, and obviously the window there at the top. But anyways, let's set off. Setting off here in the two-door Defender, and I'm not really going to make any comparisons in this part of the video because we're driving the four-door second, and so that's where we will make all the comparisons. But in terms of the driving dynamics here with the two-door, it still feels like a nice luxury vehicle. It has a nice smooth ride quality to it, really well insulated cabin. The seats are a little bit on the firmer side, but they're still very comfortable to sit in. I can imagine you could be in these seats for long road trips and that would not be an issue whatsoever. Definitely feels quick though with this engine. Like it feels super punchy, and it feels like a lot of power for how small this is. It's not that big of a vehicle whatsoever, and just tons of power, right? Almost 400 horsepower. Pretty crazy stuff. See how the braking is coming up to here. It'll be interesting to see how the braking feels with both of them, like the difference. And we'll kind of punch it here a little bit. Definitely quick. I will say that, definitely quick. Body control is really good. I'm interested to see how that feels between the two, is just like how much body roll the four-door is going to have compared to this. I think it's going to have quite a bit more, just with that extra, I mean, obviously extra length adds stability, but then it's also weight, so we'll see exactly how that feels. But yeah, this feels like a really nice, small, zippy, lightweight SUV that also has a ton of power. So definitely a fun driving experience. One thing to note is with the steering here with the Defender, and I mean, this kind of applies across the board, I guess, is the steering's very light, but it's also really direct. And so it's kind of interesting just with how the steering feels because of, again, how light it is, but then it just like turn-in is great with the Defender, which obviously would be great when you are taking it off-road. But let's get into signing things up here for this two-door, and then obviously we'll go hop into the four-door and we'll kind of summarize everything from a driving experience perspective with both of them once we go through that. In terms of the exterior aesthetics, I still can't decide which one I like more. With the two-door, I think it looks pretty cool, but I think the Defender looks better with the four-door. I want you guys to let me know in the comment section below which one you prefer. That's just me personally. I think that the four-door looks a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. I just feel like the overall size and everything is just perfect with the styling, whereas this, it doesn't look bad, but it kind of looks a little bit silly in a way. I don't know what it is, but it is what it is in my opinion. Now aside from that, with the two-door, again, lightweight, really quick. There is a little bit of turbo lag with this engine, but once you get into those turbos, man, it really goes quick, let me tell you. And I mean, overall, this is a great build to go for, just a great vehicle to go for. If you want something that is going to be really capable off-road, it's going to be a little bit less money. And if you don't really care about all of the luxury comforts you get with the four-door, and then obviously if you don't need the extra space because you're not going to be hauling around a ton of people. And on top of that, right, this will do a little bit better off-road because of the shorter wheelbase. Look at that. Like, it's quick. Feels quick. I wonder if I'm gonna be able to perceive the acceleration difference. That's something I'm really interested in. But yeah, the two-door is great with a standard suspension, and with this kind of more baseline interior for the Defender, it still feels like a really nice upscale luxury SUV. But then it's cool that you could take this off-road and it's just so capable. So let's talk about visibility here in the four-door. So there's your visibility of the hood. Both the mirrors, they do have blind spot monitoring, and then throughout the rest of the rear. So visibility isn't as good as the two-door. Definitely can see that difference already. Let's set off. We are setting off here in the four-door Defender, and first off, you can definitely feel that this is a more substantial, larger vehicle right off the bat. And it actually does feel smoother from a ride quality perspective as well. You can actually feel the difference between both of them, driving them back to back. Now, I'm not sure if that's the larger size or the air suspension, but it does feel smoother from a ride quality perspective. It just feels nicer. It really does. Again, it feels like a more substantial, nicer, larger vehicle, which, I mean, it is a larger vehicle. And then in terms of the steering and all that, the steering actually feels very similar between both of them. But the one thing that I will mention is the steering in this almost feels heavier. Yeah, it feels just slightly heavier. Engine still feels really punchy, really good from an acceleration standpoint, but it feels like slightly slower than the two-door. You can actually perceive the difference, which it's pretty interesting that you can perceive the difference. I think that is a pretty cool fact. In terms of the body control, it's interesting. It doesn't have more body roll. It actually feels a little bit more stable when you're going around the corners. Again, kind of makes sense with the longer overall wheelbase and everything. But the other thing that I will say is it doesn't feel like it handles any worse. It feels like, again, it feels bigger, but doesn't feel like it handles worse because of the larger size, because it still feels really stable. Yeah, it's so interesting, the difference. I definitely like this, like the leather and stitching the airbag cover. I know that's kind of random, but I thought I'd mention it because it looks nice. But I guess let's get into summing things up with which Defender you should go for. So again, from an aesthetics perspective, I prefer the four-door. I think it looks a little bit nicer. From a driving perspective, it does feel nicer. It feels like a more substantial vehicle, feels larger, feels smoother with the ride quality. Now again, I can't comment on if that is from the air suspension or if that's because of the four-door configuration, but it does feel smoother compared to that two-door. And it's hard to put my finger on it, but like it feels nicer. Like this feels right for this vehicle. I know it sounds weird, but it feels right. And obviously it's got more storage space, so that's another huge plus as well with going to the four-door. And it doesn't really feel all that much slower compared to the two-door from an acceleration perspective. So you're gaining storage space. It feels nicer from a ride quality perspective. And I mean, really all you're losing is the off-road capability part of it, right? Because it's still capable off-road, but it's not gonna be as good because of the longer wheelbase. So it just depends on what you're gonna use this for. I imagine most of you that are gonna daily drive this, I would say get the four-door. I definitely I like the overall feel of it. It feels, like I said, it just feels right with everything. It doesn't feel like you're really losing anything by going to the four-door, and it feels like you're gaining a whole lot. Again, you're gaining the extra storage space. You're gaining the better ride quality as well that this has. And on top of that, since you can't really get power seats or anything in a two-door, it's like, I don't know if it's really worth it, right? Because I kind of like features like that. So depends what you're looking for, but out of this comparison, I'm gonna say that the four-door is the route to go. It feels like it's a nicer vehicle. And acceleration, yeah, it's definitely a little slower, but it's not that much. That's gonna sum things up for our Land Rover Defender comparison. And again, a huge shout out and thank you to Harrison Imports for giving me some time with both of these Defenders. Check out their inventory link below. I will see all of you in that next video.